Today is the 22nd of December 2021. It is a public holiday in Zimbabwe. Is this a holiday that the majority of Zimbabweans celebrate? We do not think so. It is ZANU-PF that celebrates this holiday. In this video, we are calling on the government of Zimbabwe to scratch off this public holiday, the 22nd of December, because it does not serve any purpose. It is no longer relevant today. I am Mabuto Nicholas Mapena, General Secretary of the Zimbabwe Communist Party. Please like the video, subscribe. Want to hear your views on what you think about this day. Let's give a background to how we came to have 22nd of December declared as a public holiday known as the Unity Day in Zimbabwe. We all know historically that the liberation movement in Zimbabwe, which was then Southern Rhodesia, split in 1963 under the influence of the imperialist forces. We have dealt, of course, with this question in the previous video when we were discussing sanctions in Zimbabwe. But for the purposes of this video, the split occurred in 1963. ZAPU split into two. ZANU was formed in 1963 at the house of the late Inosingala, a ZANU stalwart. The struggling was waged differently by the armed forces of the two former liberation movements, ZAPU and the ZANU, until 1980 when Zimbabwe gained the majority rule. But when all of us celebrated the majority rule, we celebrated believing that we had indeed attained our independence. It was not so. We discussed in the previous video, which we will not return to now, when the black government led by Robert Gabriel Mugabe was prime minister, then deployed Kukurawundi to Matabeleland and the parts of Midlands. In trying to end the 50th Brigade atrocities, a genocide, two parties, ZAPU and ZANU, entered into negotiations to find a solution. We should also remember that at the time, ZANU-PF wanted to impose a one-party state in Zimbabwe. We will discuss in some other videos whether a one-party state was really needed in Zimbabwe, whether we do need a one-party state. It's a debate for another day. So ZANU-PF forced, through a genocide, ZAPU to sign the Unity Accord on the 22nd of December 1987. It then declared the 22nd December as an annual public holiday to celebrate what it called unity. ZANU-PF did so in 1987 because Zimbabwe was a two-party state. A two-party state meaning it was ZANU-PF and the PF-ZAPU that was represented in the Parliament of Zimbabwe as major parties. Of course, there were minor parties, the part of Ian Smith and Dabaning and others, but it was basically a two-party state. When the Unity Accord was signed on the 22nd of December 1987, there was general peace in Matabeleland and parts of Midlands when Kukurawundi 5th Brigade soldiers were withdrawn from communities and amnesty was granted to the so-called dissidents, which of course we'll discuss in some other video in understanding whether indeed there were genuine dissidents or there were creation of the state of Zimbabwe. So up to 2000, Zimbabwe generally remained a constitutionally one-party state, meaning while the people of Zimbabwe would go to elections in 1990, in 1995, in 1996, ZANU-PF remained the majority party. It controlled the National Assembly. It had, at some point, there were only 3 opposition members of parliament in 1990 and 1995. The rest were ZANU-PF members of parliament. Because after the unit accord, the party was then known as ZANU-PF to accommodate ZAPU. Well, the choice of the name is a debate again for another day, even though evidence point out that in 1980, ZANU contested elections as ZANU-PF. But that's a debate for another day. But after 2 decades in power, we saw the emergence of the movement for democratic change. Established in 1999. In 2000, the MDC, supported by civil society in the main labor movement, rural organizations, young people, women, challenged ZANU-PF dominance in the body politics of Zimbabwe, winning 57 of the 120 contested seats in 2000. From 2000 up to date, Zimbabwe remains a 2-party state. It is either ZANU-PF or the MDC. Of course, the MDC has split, but the reality is that Zimbabwe remains a 2-party state, either as ZANU-PF or the MDC. It is ZANU-PF and the MDC that are represented in the National Assembly. It doesn't matter whether it's MDC-Ts, MDC-Mons, or whatever you call them, but they are all MDC. So Zimbabwe remains a 2-party state. So the Unit Accord of 1987 ended a 2-party state to basically a 1-party state. When ZAPU, others will use the term that it was swallowed by ZANU to establish ZANU-PF. So our country has been polarized since 2000 with the emergence of the MDC in 1999, putting to bed that we are indeed a united nation, or our nation is united across political divide. Because what was being celebrated on the 22nd of December 1987 was that Zimbabweans were united politically, and the task therefore was to build the Zimbabwean economy so that the people of Zimbabwe will enjoy the fruits of the independence or majority rule. But with the emergence of the MDC, our country has been polarized. We can no longer talk of us as united in Zimbabwe, which begs the question, what is the relevance of Unity Day today in 2021? What are we celebrating? Why do we have this public holiday? When our nation is divided politically, is it not time that this holiday must be scrapped? It must be removed. It does not serve its purpose. We're not saying so because ZAPU pulled out of the Unity Accord in 2009. We're saying so based on the reality on the ground that our country is divided. This is why in 2008 or in 2007, SADC had to hold a special summit in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, to resolve that there was need to end the polarization in Zimbabwe through a SADC-backed dialogue which resulted on the 18th of September 2008, the signing of the political global agreement, which then facilitated the formation of an inclusive government from February 2009 to July 2013. If indeed Zimbabwe was united, or Zimbabweans were united in their diversity, there was no reason for SADC to meet in Dar es Salaam in 2007 to resolve that indeed there was need for a dialogue supervised or facilitated by SADC. There was not going to be a need for SADC to appoint former president of South Africa, His Excellency Thabo Mbeki, to be the facilitator of that dialogue, if indeed we're united as Zimbabweans. So if our country, as it emerged post the 2013 failing to unite, post the 2013 elections failing to unite, which also led to a Bond coup in November 2017, again failing to unite, what is it that we're celebrating today? Surely we cannot celebrate the coming together of two political parties, assuming those that are former ZAPU members who are still in ZANU-PF insisted that the unit accord, as they understand it, is still relevant. But why should a nation be forced to observe the coming together of two political parties? It doesn't serve any purpose. It is no longer relevant. Our country remains polarized. We are divided. We cannot celebrate the unit accord signed on the 22nd of December 1987. It does not serve any purpose. It therefore must go. What we must do, all of us as Zimbabweans, is to chart a new path, to unite against stooges of imperialists in our country, to unite against the looters of our resources in our country. Once we achieve that, it is that unity as Zimbabweans that we can celebrate. That indeed we have been able to build a national democratic economy. But what unity are we celebrating when our young people cannot get jobs in Zimbabwe? I was reading this morning online newspaper saying villagers in Gutu were given fertilizers by ZANU-PF councillor, about 400 bags or so, retained those because they were not enough for the entire community. In the previous video, we also spoke about how ZANU-PF abuses traditional leaders. You remember the chief in Maswingo, who said that corruption is the root of all the economic problems that we are going through as a country. If we have this happening, if villagers can retain fertilizer on the basis that it is not enough for all of them, if local traditional leaders are now speaking out against the abuse that they are going through in the hands of ZANU-PF, what unity are we celebrating? If close to 80% of economic active young people are not working, they are driven into the informal sector, what unity are we celebrating? When people are being kidnapped in the dead of the night for holding different political views from ZANU-PF, what unity are we celebrating? When police continue to detain those who want to remember their relatives who died in the genocide, we have seen it, Bechulgazul and others, going to Balakwe to remember those that are buried there. We have seen how the state reacts to such. They've been vandalizing the plaques that have been erected there. They've been stopping people from having these Kukurawundi memorials across the country. So what are we celebrating? What I was celebrating when young people in this festive season are caught up in no man's land in Bedbridge, where the Zimbabwe government, knowing fully well that its citizens are working in South Africa undocumented, when they return to Zimbabwe for holidays, the state insists that they must have traveling documents. When it knows that it has failed them by providing them or creating conditions for employment opportunities, what unit are we celebrating? What unit are we celebrating when women are abused on daily basis? What unit are we celebrating when ZANU-PF leaders are members of a apostolic faith church that marries out 13-year-old girls in the name of religion? What unit are we celebrating? It is this background that the Unity Day today does not serve any purpose and it must go. We hope and believe that this is the last day, 22 December in 2021, that this day will be declared as a holiday. There's no reason for us to have a holiday on the 22nd of December every year. So let's start a new page. Let's begin to have dialogue amongst ourselves as Zimbabweans and identify issues that unite us and work on those. Identify issues that divide us as a nation and resolve them. Once that has been done, we can indeed celebrate our victory. And the only victory that must be celebrated is when the economy of Zimbabwe is placed in the hands of society as a whole. When young people have access to employment, when young people have access or are able to run their businesses without any interference. We have seen how the transport industry has been collapsed through Zupco monopoly. Black people who have been involved in the public transport sector have been elbowed out through the Zupco monopoly. And we expect these people to celebrate this day as a unity day. Let us demand that this day must not be declared a holiday. It is no longer relevant. I am Ngabuto Nicholas Mapen. Please write your views. Want to understand what you think of this day, whether you agree with us or you're one of those that you think this day must stay as it is. Otherwise, please like the video, circulate, subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.